I just want to note that we are recording this on October 7th, 2024. It's been a year since the beginning of this phase of the genocide in Gaza. And to quote Rabbi Brant Rosen, this is a time of genocide. This is a time of genocide. And we know that there have been other genocides in the past, and there is more than one genocide happening right now. And so it can feel very uncomfortable having an episode about a topic like fashion in the midst of all this suffering and in the midst of all this repression and the double standards. But you, Lavinia, you are aware of the deep harm that happens, even in the fashion industry, in a place where maybe we don't think about it very much. And it makes sense for us to uncover harm everywhere that most people want to avoid. Just like some people may be avoiding the news right now. And this past weekend, I was in Bogota, and there were people who were living on the street. And the way that we are taught, conditioned to walk past them, I think speaks a lot to why if we can do that with someone who's right in front of us, then of course we can do it with people living far away or in an industry like fashion where we literally don't see the people. We're just wearing clothes and we're wanting to feel good and look good. And it's all about that. And the suffering is really hidden. So if we're not able to look at the suffering in front of us, then how are we ever going to be able to look at the suffering that's in a hidden industry? I really find it so tragic how I can be in the middle of Poland and see a Kentucky Fried Chicken on one side of the road and a Burger King on the other side and say, guess where I am? But not only that, it's the houses, the cars, the restaurants, the hotels, the malls, the way people are dressing, how people say things, and it's a monoculture. It is so disgusting because we are incredible human beings with this incredible capacity for creativity and innovation. And it's not through the fault of the people in general that this has happened. Even the weapons being used, like if you're going to have a war, the weapons being used are the same all over the world. So, something happened, right? Call it colonization and all of that. And certain companies, certain rich people are able to really destroy culture. And we're just left with one culture. Here in Colombia, I can look at the news and see reports of indigenous people in areas around the country, and some of them are wearing their traditional clothing. But the indigenous people that live here in my town, just outside of Bogota, they're displaced. And they've been brought in from hot regions to come to this cold place to work in the flower industry. And they're dressed in jeans and t-shirts. And it's just so sad to see all over the world this monoculture and to think about how it came to be. Like Coca-Cola everywhere. And the food, they sell pizza here. Imagine what it would be like if we had to go to Italy to have pizza. And I'm not entirely sure that pizza is the invention of Italy. Just like chicken tikka masala is not from India, it's from Scotland. So there's just not a whole lot that is special about places. I mean, there are still some differences, but there's such a monoculture. And I like to imagine, what would it be like to live in this market town in Colombia if it hadn't been influenced by the West? What would people live in? How would people live together? What would they eat? How would they eat together? What would they dress like? The sky's the limit. I think just because you take away the profit motive, same with medicine, it doesn't mean that no one will be willing to provide people with things that they need without a profit motive. That's a real lie that they've sold to us. I'd rather have doctors who are doing it because they care about my health rather than because it was a lucrative profession to go into. I'd rather trust a pharmaceutical company that wasn't in it for the profit and know that they're actually working on prevention as well, because it makes sense for the health of the people rather than how are they going to make the most money. I really believe that people do care about each other. And if we see people needing clothing, we'll figure out how to clothe them. If we see people suffering from illness, we'll work on it. And you hear children around the world talking about growing up to find a cure for something. They're usually not talking about how they're going to make money. Okay, nowadays you might see people saying, oh, I really want to be a YouTube influencer. But I think that we actually deep down want a meaningful way to contribute to life on the planet. I don't want us to have jobs either. I just want us to live and meet each other's needs, which will include things like clothing and food, but also our need for doing meaningful things, our need for community. We really need to take time with each other to feel what is happening in the world and not just walk by people on the street without really grappling with the fact that this person isn't just a statistic. This person is someone with needs, and they are sleeping on the street while hundreds of tourists walk by. And then we come home and turn on the TV and watch reports about what's been happening the past year and all those messages we're getting, the lies, the excuses, the dehumanization of people. Certain people deserve to have their names read out and their photos up, apparently, and others don't. So there's nothing super wise to say here other than it's all devastating. But my hope is in the fact that more and more people are becoming radicalized by the double standards. We just had that Hurricane Helene in the United States, and that of course gets more coverage than, say, something similar would in Bangladesh. But even there, the stories that I've been hearing, like, who is coming to save us? It's not industry leaders. It's not governments. We only have each other. And that requires us being very deliberate around resisting the dehumanization of our fellow humans.